You're listening to Masters Decoded podcast series. I'm your host and the chief decoder, Anis Merchant. Through this podcast, I bring in guests who are successful in a different walk of life to decode and map out their careers and journeys with the hope that we gain all our learnings. The world around us is changing exponentially, and how the impact of artificial intelligence, technology, and other socioeconomic factors have either influenced or enhanced my guests' careers.
My next guest on today's episode is Bindu Bhatia. Bindu has spent last 2 decades in leadership development, coaching, and driving talent and gender diversity agenda for organizations globally. She's an award-winning learning consultant and has developed many of the learning interventions which she has designed and facilitated and has won numerous awards. Leveraging her unique methodology of neuro-linguistic programming and emotional intelligence, she runs powerful leadership development workshops and coaching programs for some of the largest organizations in the world. She has developed her flagship programs like Art of Storytelling, Presenting with Impact, Executive Present, Gender Sensitivity, Women Leadership Program, and many more. Bindu herself holds a master's degree in organizational psychology, a master practitioner certificate in NLP, diploma in instructional design, and a diploma in transactional analysis. Often called Miss Dependable by her colleagues, Bindu has a knack of putting people at ease very quickly. And you would see that in this podcast, she put me actually at very ease throughout the conversation. I'm really thankful for Bindu opening up the way she did, and I'm sure each one of you would be motivated and energized after today's conversation. So listen in.
Hi Bindu, welcome to Masters Decoded podcast series.
Thank you, Anis. Very, very excited and glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome, and it's a real pleasure to have you. And there are some very interesting topics which I hope we can get covered today from our conversation.
Certainly,
So,
all set for that.
definitely, and I would definitely would expect a coach like you to be all set for sessions like this. So, talking about
Yeah.
coaching, uh, you've almost now spent 2 decades of your professional life, and a major chunk of that professional life has been spent on corporate as a corporate person. And since last 3 years, when I looked at your profile, you've been on your own. uh,
Yes.
what got in your head to leave the corporate life and be on your own?
So there's a huge lineup story there.
Sure.
So I belong to a family where I'm the first graduate. None in my family, my brother, my parents. So there were obviously a lot of expectations, and we were not very well off. I come from a very lower middle class kind of family, and there was a drive, there was a need to earn a lot and lot of money. I'll be very honest. So I still remember when I started my corporate career, and my significant job. The first one that I got was GE, and I still remember the first day. When I called up my dad, I had this STD booth where I was there, and I called him up and I said, "Papa, 8,000 rupees," and my dad was crying there. I was crying here. So at that point in time, I think the only drive was to um, earn a lot of money, get to a better life, a secured life where we don't have to worry about tomorrow. And I think that drive remained till 15 years. I didn't realize that unconsciously it was all about really doing well in my life. What am I doing for myself? How I want to get a house, a car, and it was just like a normal rat race that you look at. So while I was loving what I was doing, so that was another additional, and I'm very grateful for that. At the same time, I think a lot of my corporate career, the biggest part or biggest chunk of my corporate career was more about how can I go ahead in the race.
Hmm.
And luckily, being part of learning and development, you get to more depths of emotional intelligence. You get into self-awareness, and the day I realized that, oh my god, what am I doing? I'm never going to be happy because I'm always chasing something. So that was the day when I discovered that I need to change something in life to be really to feel that happiness, that satisfaction. And then my journey started to see what would I want to do,
Hmm.
uh, even if I wasn't getting any money,
Okay.
and that's when I realized my purpose. I realized that making a difference to people has always excited me more than anything else. Uh, it was about doing something that can help people,
Hmm.
um, and then that was the new need that came into my life, that yeah, let me just see if I can make a difference in people. And
Wow.
as I moved into that journey, um, they came a point when I asked my husband, will we have food to eat if I don't work, and I don't work in a corporate and I just start
Wow.
on my own? And he was like, no, not now, right now. So I waited for 3 years. I prepared, I geared up, like you said. I learned from failures, I learned from other people, but I was very clear in my mind that I'm going to start something on my own. And my mission became to really increase the emotional intelligence in the world, increase the resilience in the world, and as many people as I can. From last 3 years, this has been my most fulfilling journey, where I'm truly living my purpose and impacting lives, and that's the whole transition.
That's so, I would say, empowering and enriching to hear somebody that coming from a humble beginning to taking that leap of faith, because there are certain things of situations in personal life which form our beliefs, which make us do
Absolutely.
things like you said, the focused on rat race because you had to focus on food. As they say in India, the three basic necessities: the food, the house, and you know the food, the house, and living life, right? The basic necessities which are there, right? The clothes, for example. So and you you always had that subconsciously in your mind, which drove you which to your corporate career.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
but we'll talk more about this emotional intelligence and this this thing what you're doing right now more. But since you brought this up, I really want to focus on it right now, and rather than taking it later. Is you mentioned in your family and in your maternal side, you didn't have, or nobody was, you were the first graduate. You said even your brother wasn't. So there was a set of expectation. Uh, Talk about how did you go about doing that graduation also? Because if you come from that background, there is a lot of hardships also which you have to overcome, whether it is societal, family, a lot of that. So let's talk a little bit about that. I think if you're okay with that, I know I'm
Yes,
touching
yes,
a nail.
Anis. Thank you. Yes, you're touching the life that I never went back to, but it'll be nice to share it, I think.
Yeah.
So yes, while there were a lot of hindrances in life, schooling till schooling it was fine because my dad was able to afford the school fee. But I started taking tuitions when I was in class sixth. So I always
Wow.
say that my career started in class sixth. I was
Okay.
teaching then, I'm teaching now. Only the subjects have changed. But then,
Okay.
yeah, I always had this in me that I need to earn money, right? So I started taking tuition. My dad doesn't know that I used to take money as well at that point in time. But it was all to, contribute something to the family. But I still remember that throughout my life, throughout my college, I used to earn my own fee.
Mhm.
uh, I used to do some typing work, spell checks for people, those proofreading stuff to earn the money to pay for the college. And there were times when we were not able to do that. And I still remember this one particular incident when I was doing my diploma in computer engineering. And because back then people thought that engineers is the best stream to get into, uh, and we didn't have money, and I was like totally stuck.
Mm.
And my dad, whose business obviously wasn't working too well, he actually ended up selling off his computers to pay off my fee. And that somewhere, I remember my mom contributing to it through her, remaining pieces of jewelry. So these are all, it sounds very cliched. I've never talked about it, but then, now that you've pinched that nerve, um, I remember all of that, and that, drove me further. That they're doing so much for me, and I need to give back. I need to do something about it. So I gave my 100%, and yeah, the journey was quite interesting. I used to enjoy that part as well. So you know, walking for miles and miles together to get printouts. And in those days, there were floppy disks.
Yeah.
So I would type things, get to another shop, get the printout, and if floppy doesn't work, then again walk back to the other shop. And it was a good struggle, I would say, that made me more resilient. So yeah, earned and learned, and
These
huge contribution from
the floppy disks were a menace for many of us. I still remember
my
that. We all have our sour memories when they have gone bad, and they were expensive for that time. Uh,
Oh
they
yeah, absolutely. So I used to proofread for people to buy one,
okay,
and then it used to have tuitions, and then so in the morning, say example for example 7 to 9, I would go to teach in a computer institute, and
okay,
then from 9 onwards till 3 p.m. we used to have our college. And then from 3 onwards I would do all the typing stuff, the assignment printing and stuff for teachers around to gain that kind of money. So yeah,
it's
that used to
you
be
were
my
workaholic at that time, and you still are, I'm sure.
yeah, I used to enjoy that. Yeah,
Okay.
I enjoy that still.
So you've come from that background, you've seen that life, you've seen that hard work. And how do you infuse that in your family now, in your family values, in the family culture, and people around you? How do you infuse that? Because today, some people, you know, they don't, many, I've also been through that situation, what you're talking about. I started my career when I was 18. The eligible working age in India is 18. I started my eligible, like a proper corporate life at 18. Immediately, like February, I completed. April, I started working. So in a span of 2 months of 18, I started working. So I understand what you're talking about uh, as well. That, but many people feel, uh, I would say today, young folks, they feel that they should not see that life. But many of us have. So how do you instill that in your people around you?
I think what is more important to understand is that everyone has their own journey. You don't need to instill anything.
Hmm,
I feel responsible to just be a good human being.
hmm,
And that is one thing. I do parenting sessions at times, and and these parents are like, oh, we worked so hard, and these people, they don't want to work hard. I said, why did you work hard? You worked hard because we didn't have resources at that point in time, right? And we
hmm,
wanted that. Now you are bringing those resources to your kids, and they already have it. Why do you want them to do something which they don't need?
Okay.
right? So they're already at a higher level in the hierarchy of needs. Then the focus is not about them working hard or chasing something. The focus should be to, just make them a good human being first. Just instill values, they'll figure out what they have. So, I don't believe in shaping or instilling that stuff in people. It and if you have done that struggle, you would know it's mentally, emotionally, physically draining,
Hmm.
right? We were able to do it because there was a background, there was a need for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
You spoke about the emotion right now, and let's double click a little bit on the emotional intelligence uh, aspect. And I think that topic is very near and dear to you. Um, for me, emotional
yes.
intelligence, and today a lot of conversation is happening about emotional intelligence because of the world of AI. Now, where people are saying you need to, but you started this journey 3 years ago. This pandemic has brought this entire mental health, emotional intelligence in the forefront as well for many corporates and for many, or all of us. We are all battling our own wars daily, mentally more than physically. Uh, Share a little bit. What is your perspective of emotional intelligence? How would you define emotional intelligence as?
Sure. So, simply put, my journey in emotional intelligence started in 2004, and I'll tell you that story a little later. But I've been researching about the subject. I've been implementing stuff on my own self first to check whether it works. And very simply put, uh, neuroscientifically also it has been proven we have two brains, right? One is the logical part, neocortex, and second is the emotional part.
Hmm.
Now both of them work like you have around 30-40,000 thoughts in a day,
Hmm.
and more than 400 emotions that you feel in a day. You might not be conscious about it, but these are facts that are proven. But the point is that if it is happening automatically, then there must be some programming behind it.
Hmm.
How are these connected? How is the limbic brain connected to the neocortex? How our thoughts and feelings are intertwined? And studying that, knowing why we are emoting the way we are emoting, knowing why we are thinking the way we are thinking, and then the ability to tweak it, change it. In the scientific terms, you say manual, right? User manual.
Hmm. But can you
User
really
manual, that's emotional intelligence. Yeah, sorry.
tweak it? Uh, can you really tweak it? Because we always say humans are emotional fools. Uh,
Okay, tell me what's the first word that comes to your mind when I say A for?
Apple.
Yeah, first word. How did we learn this word?
It was infused. It was like as a child we have been always. That was. It was almost like a Bible which we are reading, or a Gita, or a Quran which we
Right?
are reading.
Over and over again and repeating, rote learning. And what happens then? There is a connection that is formed in the brain.
Hmm.
So, I would, just say that treat your brain as a very simple machine. It's nothing but just the machine. Whatever you enter into the brain, it says "I, Captain," and it starts creating that neuro pathway,
Hmm.
right? So if you can input something today which is different, you can always replace it from something that's old. And all you, in fact, C++, Java, and your AI programming, these are way more difficult. You need degrees for that. But programming your brain, once you understand it, it's the simplest thing that you can think about. All you need to do is just change the input, and your output will be different.
For
So to
kids, it's
answer your question,
easier. Yeah, for kids, it's easier. Okay, but as you grow, there are these programs which have been instilled on our minds, which is difficult. And there is a misconception in the corporate world also, and in real life that people after a certain age, it's hard to change them. It's hard to change their perspectives. What's your thought on that?
So I would say it's hard to change. If you tell your brain it's hard to change, that's also a
Hmm.
input you're giving to your brain. It's hard. So brain will say, "Aye, Captain. It's hard. It's Buddhu, right? You've gone to movies, you've cried. You know that movie is not real, but we still have tears in our eyes, right? Why? Because our brain is absolutely an idiot box. It doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination.
Hmm.
It'll just agree to whatever you tell it. So if you are telling it that it's hard, then of course it'll be hard. It'll say, yeah. So for me, my dad used to say her maths needs to be improved, and I was like, yeah, I'm not good at maths. And my brain will just convince me, yes, you're not good at maths. I'm not going to let you do any maths. I changed that. Now I'm really good at maths. So
Wow.
you can change. As simple as that. It's just about what you are telling yourself, that each thought that you have, either you let your brain do the default programming basis your conditioning, or you give new instructions and you change it. It's as simple as that.
Hmm. So you coach a lot of folks today, and you talk a lot about emotional intelligence, and you know, and as a coach, you have a kind of an agreement with your coachee that you will not share with anybody, whoever it is, whether it's their boss or whether it is a subordinate or whether it is a parent and a child, whoever it is, you will never share that, or it's even of a spouse. But I don't want to give you, no, I don't want you to put in spot and say, give me an example of your coachee, right? But you know, coaching is also a very mental draining exercise for a coach. And I
Oh,
don't know
yes, absolutely.
if you agree to that, because you're trying to not teach somebody. Teaching is very different than coaching. uh, they do have certain parallels, but coaching is a very different thing because people can emotionally drain you out more than anything else. So let's talk a little bit about the coaches first, then we'll come to you from a coach perspective. But from a coachee perspective, how do you ensure that they you are able to break through them, and how do they get comfortable?
So, my first rule for coaching is that uh, unless a person himself or herself is not open to get coached, you cannot coach them. Then it's just a formality. So, and what do we mean by that openness is about being able to know that there is a change that is required. There, I really need to change and I'll open up. So at least that first step of being open to change and not saying that no, now I'm too old, I can't change, then you can't coach them, right? So I think when people opt for getting coached, there is a certain level of openness already there for them to learn.
Hmm.
um, then it is about you as a coach, how much trust are you able to build with them, to be able to open up. So coaching is all about, I'm coaching people from different various fields. I don't know nothing about that. So it's it's like, they are maybe sometimes double the age I am.
Hmm.
But then how is it more impactful is because the role of a coach is to ask right questions at the right time and just help them unwind their own conditionings, help them open up their own by default programming in your machine terms. What was the programming, and then just change the code.
Hmm.
So those are some reflective questions that you can ask and help them open up. And I think the power is in asking the right question.
Okay. So let's now switch the gears towards you. You are coaching probably in a day, four, five, eight people, let's say. Okay. And minimum coaching sessions can be an hour because in 30 minutes you cannot get anything done.
Anis, I'll stop you there because one, I never look at time when I coach.
Okay. Okay. So you
See,
can go
I
on.
told you that it can go on for hours. It can just finish in like 30 minutes. It totally depends on the coaching. And plus, I'm not into, back to back coaching as a business. No, I'm not doing that. So I take very few coaches at one point in time,
Okay.
and only the ones who really want to make a difference. So, for my living and for reaching out to more and more people, I facilitate a lot of sessions for corporates, for individuals. We have our open calendars. So, I do all of that stuff in trainings and facilitating sessions. But coaching, I take very limited. As you said, it's a draining process. And for me, right now, it's a magical phase where I'm not working for money. So it's not like a machine
Very
output for me
interesting.
or factory output. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's
No, that's good. So
now you can.
okay, let's talk about the game phase on that. How do you put on your game phase when you, let's say, like, you know, okay, here I am, here I've arrived to coach. How do you do that? How do you prepare mentally, physically?
So like I said, it's all about your own brain programming.
Hmm.
So when I get into coaching, my mental stance and what I tell myself 15 seconds before I get into a coaching session is that, uh, I hope I'm able to help. My only objective is to help this person. That's all. So that mental stance of, just going with your 100%, because you can never be prepared for coaching. You never know what will come, right? And it's a very intuitive process. I mean, people say use grow model, star model, and I was like, please, you can't be so mechanical while coaching. It's a very intuitive process. So I just trust my instincts, and I'm like, the only thing is I need to help this person the way whatever they are seeking for. So not too much of prep required. It's just the instruction. You remember, brain is just a machine, so you just press that button and say yes. I do neuro-linguistic programming. I don't know if you've heard about this NLP.
Yes, yes, very much.
So yeah, so I've installed some buttons in my brain that helps me get into that role very very quickly.
In the AI world, the word NLP is very different, and in the
Yes.
emotional intelligence, the definition would be very different. So let us decode this NLP
Yeah,
and that
please.
uh, and and that the
Yes.
NLP I would leave it aside. Let us decode this. So what is the neuro linguistic programming? How do you go about defining that?
Okay. So this is a $1 million question. Um,
I hope the listeners pay
for
you the
me,
$1 million to answer the question and to understand that.
so neuro-linguistic programming is a methodology, and it works on the fact that your brain is just a machine and you can reprogram it using language patterns. So neuro linguistic is language and programming. So what you tell your brain is what uh, it's going to agree on. So it has around, more than 100 plus techniques or language patterns that can completely reprogram your conditioning. So, like what you were saying, that can be changed. Yes, we can change. And NLP helps you change those age old programmings, unconscious biases. It helps you change the patterns, your triggers, your fears,
Hmm.
your fear of authority. So in professional life, it works wonder. It just completely changes
Hmm.
your whole perspective towards looking at things.
Nice.
Yes.
I don't want to stretch this topic in a controversial way. The brain is such a powerful machine, though being an idiot box. If you have the will, you can cure diseases. Or,
Conditions also. And you hear a lot of interesting stories. Even in this pandemic, you hear that people although their immunity may be low, but if their will is strong, they can still survive. And a lot of people are suffering because, or not surviving, is because their will was not strong. They couldn't get through this. So, on that particular point, uh, have you seen using NLP techniques, the neuro-linguistic programming techniques, people have been able to overcome certain conditions, personal conditions, doing that. And you spoke about these techniques. Do you see that?
Oh, absolutely. And I truly believe that mind and body are connected just like. So let me just give you a quick example of
Hmm.
how your your thoughts and emotions change the way your body works. So when you when you emote, there is any emotion that you go through, happy, sad, doesn't matter, but any emotion that you go through, do you feel something in your body?
Yeah, when I'm smiling, I'm more energized, I would say. So that's the energy which is flowing in, I would say. If I'm
Yeah.
smiling, my
Now,
body kind of sulks in a way. Yes.
what they say is that every emotion that is produced in the brain, there is a energy, extra energy that is produced, right? Now, this energy or current then flows in the body. Now, when you are angry, for example, where do you feel the current in your body? I feel it in my throat. When you are angry, where do you feel it?
My
Do you
arms,
feel some
in my
your
arms.
arms? Some people feel it in the heart. Some people feel it in the head or ears. Or when you're nervous, again, you feel that energy flowing, right? Some
Yes.
people have sweaty palms. So it's a well proven uh, thought and well proven perspective that whenever there is an emotion that is triggered in our brain, there is an extra current that is produced. And that extra current, if it remains inside the brain, so if you're emoting a lot and there's a lot of extra current in the brain, you will feel that heaviness, right? So, what brain does is it just spreads it out in the body.
Hmm.
Now, the point is there is a electrical socket, for example, right? You put a plug in it, there is a current that starts flowing in, right? And then the device starts working. Now, similar is our body. But if there is extra current in that socket, what will happen?
It may blow up or it may damage the device.
Right? And that device is nothing but those organs.
Hmm.
So if you emote extra, be it happy or sad, and in our scriptures also it's written that you know any kind of emotion that is extra can it needs we need to have that balanced approach, and it's not good for us. So the point is that because there is so much of current that is generated when you
Hmm.
are emoting, some part of your body does get impacted, and if it is prolonged, it will impact that an extra current. Where will it go? So like extra current impacts your devices, that's what it is doing in your body. Now only, and that is why we say psychosomatic stuff, and a lot of diseases, like there are stories how cancer patients have recovered by just changing the way they are thinking and feeling,
Hmm.
right? So simple things like thyroid, backache problems, shoulder issues. I have personally used NLP for a lot of my coaches to get rid of these things.
Wow.
Um, I'm 40 plus. My eyesight is also not weak, and I
Hmm.
contributed just and I can produce my entire health report. I mean, it's all absolutely normal, and I truly believe that is because uh, extra current. I know now how to manage it. And
Hmm.
that's why I want more and more people to know that it's simple, guys. All you need to do is just be open and learn.
No, thanks for sharing this interesting perspective on emotional intelligence. So let's switch a gear a little bit and let's focus back on you and your life. Uh, I think this conversation was really enriching. Uh, Now, when I looked at your career and from your first job till the last job you had with DMC, you were in learning and development, and
Yes.
that was your biggest part of your career, I would say. Uh, and
Yes.
you've seen learning and development evolve, the career ladder evolve. What was an L&D earlier, then L&D when you left about 3 years ago, and it still continues to evolve. Uh, how do you think it has evolved over the years?
So, initially, so when I had just started, the initial phases for everyone, L&D was just tick in the box. These are some training programs. So very few people really understood the impact of it because there's no direct ROI. There's nothing that you can really measure. The emotions you can't measure. Slowly and steadily, there was this connection that was made. ROI started getting more impetus, so they wanted to know what is the result, what if I train them. So that happened. People understood that there's a very direct connection between learning, between trainings and attrition, engagement, motivation levels of people. So engagement surveys came into play. um, and we as L&D professionals had a high saying, see, these people did more trade. I remember doing this in Accenture, this whole study for global Accenture, and I remember getting the high. See, the correlation between the people who got trained tend to stay longer. They tend to get more people who spend more time in training get promoted. So all of that really just made its way through leaders, and finally it started getting that kind of importance. Then the needle shifted to training professionals, that are you really understanding, do you really understand the business perspective?
Hmm.
And that's how, I think 10 years ago this whole topic started. Do you know really what's going on? How will you be able to connect with people on the ground? So then that was the third phase, when again L&D folks had to learn a lot about what's going on the ground to be able to customize and make it relevant. But that was good news because people were at least seeing the impacts. Then came the role of technology,
Yes.
e-learnings and simulations. uh, so this technology based learning, LMS, and while it played a great role when it came to cognitive level learning, say domain learning, you want to know about healthcare, you want to know about cars. Even today, you have those VRs. You can. It's just amazing how quickly it can reduce the learning curve of a person, right? And the quality of learning has increased. I think from behavioral standpoint, how it has emerged is that earlier, yes, it started with PPT driven trainings. People, the impact was like just 5%, and
Yeah.
then it started with, if you contextualize it, and if you know about business, you can add examples. So that was the journey that we went through. So that also worked very well. At least people were able to internalize and understand. In last few years, there's something called laboratory concept. Very few trainers and facilitators have been able to crack it. But then the point is that something which is, I told you about two brains, right? The logical brain and the emotional brain. Now, logical brain works with PPTs and with your AIs and with all the LMSs, right? The technology, and you get to know, you get to learn. But if there is any change that we need in the behaviors or perspectives or conditionings, you cannot do it through an LMS program because it will just remain in the neocortex. So you need to somewhere in your trainings activate the emotional brain of people to be able to internalize that learning, right? You need to access the preconditionings, programmings that people have already had, generalizations, distortions, assumptions that people have already had, and that is all there in subconscious mind. So that is where the breakthrough happened, according to me, when T labs and T groups started happening. uh, these days it's especially done for leaders. And then I devised a way, when I was working in EMC, through my leaders and a lot of learning that my mentors have given me, um, that even if it is a larger group, you can
Okay.
establish a very human connection. And the moment people are in real sync, real rapport, right,
Mhm.
they'll start opening up. My husband used to make fun of me, say, "How many people did you make cry today?" Like, no, I don't make them cry. But then, and the more people would open up from their own vulnerable sections, the more impactful the training started becoming. And that's where I realized that it's not about games, it's not about, uh, that superficial, you're going for simulations, you're going, that's all cognitive. But then, what will stop you from going to, say, an authority figure to ask questions? Why is it difficult for people to say no? Why is it difficult for people to disagree? Because there are some underlying fears. Unless you deal with
Mm.
those fears, no matter how many models you learn, it's not going to change because that fear is always going to stop you. So I think that understanding has evolved now, and that is why emotional intelligence has taken precedence. That no matter how much cognitive level stuff we teach, unless you open up your own conditionings and reprogram it, it's not going to bring the true behavioral change. Sorry, I've talked a lot, but this
No,
is
no,
my
no, no.
topic.
See, this is amazing. But my only perspective is in the last 6 months, you spoke about these laboratories, you spoke about these getting these people together. How do you do that digitally now? How is it possible?
Oh, initially I also had this fear. Oh my God, all my USPs about making people feel, and now how am I going to do that? But then I think I was one of the first facilitators during the pandemic who came up with the whole virtual curriculum. Because what I realize is that distance doesn't matter really. And when people are glued to the screen, and if you're able to take the first attention from them, I think it's all about making that connect. Anis, we have never met. Do you feel the connection?
Yeah, meaning
And that,
we know each other as if from ages, it looks like today.
right? So it really, the distance, it doesn't really matter. It's all about how, as a facilitator, you're able to elicit and open up that portion of the brain. So as long as you can hear me, see me, it's fine. I mean, and
Okay.
when people say, "What kind of games will you play on the in the trading?" You're like, "Why do you want to play a game? We can
Yeah.
still make huge impact," and then that's what I think
Hmm.
it.
So where from now? I think you've reached that Zen mode where money is no longer a factor. It's about making an impact to people's career. So what is that big dream or the big goal you have for yourself?
The biggest lessons I've learned is that goals are not to feel satisfied.
Hmm.
So never make goals. If, yeah, if I earn like 1 crore, I'll be happy. Then you are placing your happiness in that 1 crore. So I've stopped having goals, honestly. And I experimented slowly and steadily. I experimented with it, and I go back to that model of we do have. I don't know if you've heard about it, but I've internalized it. So they say that what is the state of being that you enjoy the most?
Hmm.
It could be anything. So, for example, for my husband, it is about being peaceful and calmness,
Hmm.
right? He enjoys being in that state for a long time. I feel very jittery in that state, so I like creativity. I like to be in the creative zone. I like to do new things, and that's the adrenaline rush that I have to keep creating new stuff. So, and the state of gratefulness. So,
Yeah.
every individual has their own states that they enjoy being in. Um, and if we are able to elicit that state in what we do, right? So, every day, for example, I'm having this interview with you, Anis. If if I'm enjoying it,
Hmm.
then what else do I need? I mean, I'm in that state of being
Hmm.
that I like.
Hmm.
So,
Are you
taking
enjoying
one
it?
day at a time.
Are
Oh,
you
I'm
enjoying it?
loving it. Absolutely. Thank you. this happens to be my first formal interview in my life. So obviously it's a
I'm
different
not.
kind of high.
I'm saying we are just having a conversation, but anyways,
Yeah.
let's.
It feels good to say interview, Anis.
Okay, okay,
So
good.
small little things that make you feel good. Keep doing that, enjoy, and that's about it. Money will flow. Obviously, it flows all the time. There are a lot of. I've never asked for a single penny for any coaching, but I've always gotten surprised with how much people pay me. I only tell them that whatever you feel it's worth it, you just put it in my account. Coaching, I've never ever asked for money. From corporates for trainings, I do ask, but yes, for coaching, and that's about living your purpose, right? So yeah,
Talking a little bit more about and something which I will think again from a doubt perspective. Okay,
yes.
don't mind that.
No, no, please.
Especially being in a corporate, being a woman, there's a lot of conversation about diversity and inclusion and all of that, and then saying, okay, to hell with the corporate career because I want to make an impact. I want to do something on my own. You've had your own share of challenges and you've had your own share of learnings and successes. There are a lot of people, and there are a lot of especially women out there who want to make an impact, who want to come out, but they do have those social pressures. They do have other types of pressures which inhibit them from doing what you're doing. Okay, may not be coaching, maybe something else. What advice would you give to men and women both? I'm not trying to be one gender specifically, but men and women both. Some thoughts?
So these inhibitions, these fears, why are they there in our life in the first place? Do you know that we as human beings have this superpower that God has given, which is called fear? God has given superpowers to a lot of creatures, right? Eagles have their eye and the claws, and every creature has their own superpowers. And to human, we have fear as a superpower. Why? Because when we were evoluting, and I'm sure all of us know this story, that fear would, give us that extra energy to do stuff. But in the current state, that fear actually stops us from doing stuff. So if we are able to understand that it's just a machine, it's just about what you tell yourself, change what you tell yourself, and um, you will see the fear just goes away. At the same time, I think where I see a big problem is people want everything. They want this, or they're not very clear on. Uh, so checking your ecology is important. For example, when I had my kid, or when I discovered my purpose and I wanted to quit my job, it didn't happen overnight. I waited for 3 long years because we have to check our ecology. Is it financially viable? Is it how it is going to impact my family? So absolutely, the point is not about you being able to do it or not being able to do it. The point is about making a choice. So when I had my child, I made a choice that I'll take it easy for next 2 years. And I'm very proud of that choice. It's fine, yeah. I deserve that. So um, making a choice, sticking to it with dignity is what I would say. That often we get into dilemmas. Oh, I want to do this, but I can't do this. Getting yourself into victim state. That's a trap that your mind plays. There's a book called Game People Play. so that's a fantastic trap that people get into. Getting brain feels very safe when we are in a victim zone. So check yourself when you're putting yourself in a victim zone, and just, what I do is just point out on my head and say, shut up. I'm not going to get into victim zone. I'll tell you a small story, Anis. I think that might help people understand what I'm saying. And this happens to be the biggest story of my life, my turnaround, my turning point, how I got into EI. I told you about the background I came from, and there's this drive to do more. Uh, I got married when I was 23 or 24, and to a handsome Prince Charming. And, like every girl, I had my own dreams. Now, I realized that it was all going very, very good. And I thought that at that point in time, there was this level of satisfaction that I've got what I wanted. I have a good job, I've got a husband. And within 3 months of that marriage, he passed away. He
Oh, so
met with an
sorry to hear that.
accident, and suddenly he was no more there in my life. And once again, my life was back into that pit. I didn't know what to do. I went through my own share of depression. Um, I did not allow myself to be happy in that point. And now, when I look back, and those 2 years were the turning point in my life. That's when was the time when I started implementing what I was teaching people. That's when I realized the power of emotional intelligence, and how could I bounce back. I had to fight it, and there was this spirit in me that I need to fight it out. So that's why I'm telling everyone with all my conviction that it's all about what you tell people. From there on till now, I mean, my life has absolutely changed. I got married again. I have a beautiful child. I live in the best of houses that I could ever imagine. Um, I'm earning decent. I made my husband house husband.
Wow,
you
interesting.
know
Nice.
he had a dream to become a house husband. I was like, yeah, we are earning enough, come on, you also, why are you getting into corporate? And he's a very happy husband. He's so I think I'm one of those rare women who got the husband to become a house
I
husband. I'll
agree
work,
completely.
don't worry. But then it's it's all about how what we tell ourselves and making those choices, sticking by it. And that's what I would want to say. If I could come back, anyone can come back. I can only tell you that. And
Hmm.
it's all about your own dialogue to yourself.
I was not expecting this side of the story to open up. And thank you for sharing and being candid. I don't want to leave on that note.
But that's your magic, Anis.
Thank you. And I would want to end today's meeting on a different note. What is your advice to individuals on careers, life, and coming back, as life has surprises for all of us? Life can take you to the rock bottom, but how do you get up and take it to the next level? What would your advice be to everyone who's listening to this podcast?
So I would just say that, find a purpose.
Hmm,
Find your why. Why are you doing it? What will happen if you do this? What will not happen if you do this? If you have a very clear, strong purpose, you can just take a flight up. Then there is no looking back. Now, there are a lot of people who find it difficult to find a purpose.
I agree.
And to them, I would say it's okay. Permit yourself to be you. If you want to enjoy every day, give yourself permissions to be happy.
Wow,
Give yourself permissions to be sad also. It's okay. Just give yourself permission to live. And that's all. I think we are the ones who stop ourselves. And if you can give these powerful permissions to yourself, you live a very, very happy life.
well said.
After today's conversation, I am personally motivated, and this point about permission is such a novel thought. Actually, people, we always take permissions from others, or we are obliged, or we live in this world where we are benchmarking ourselves. We either have to wait for permissions. So, uh, such a novel thought, Bindu. And on that note, I would say thank you for taking time out. I think this has been a far enriching conversation for me personally, candidly. And as you said, we didn't know each other. And today, the way I look at it, I think I know you for ages. And one thing I personally would love to thank you is opening up. The way you opened up is, it's heartwarming. Thank you for doing that.
Thank, thank you, Anis, and all the best in what you are doing. You're doing
Thank
a
you.
great job.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words.
Thank you for listening in. And we close yet another episode of Masters Decoded. If you've enjoyed the episode, please you can help us out by sharing it on social media. I would personally appreciate that. It's how we can reach more listeners, and the more listeners we have, the more awesome guests I can get in touch and convince to participate in these conversations that are a joy to have for me, and I hope they are a joy for you to listen as well. You can also help a lot leaving reviews on iTunes or your podcast service of choice. Reviews are surprisingly helpful in supporting the podcast to get to more listeners. If this episode has intrigued you, I would request you to subscribe to the podcast to stay up to date and get notified to the future episodes. With that, I bid you and see you in the next episode.